Welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Welcome to our Stormwater Management Plan Open House. My name is Phillip Elkin. I'm a Senior Engineering Project Manager with the City of St. Louis Park. Good to see you. I see a lot of familiar faces around here. Thanks for coming out tonight. So what's tonight's meeting about is we're updating the Surface Water Management Plan. And this happens about once every 10 years in conjunction with the city's comprehensive plan update. This is the third generation of stormwater management plan updates, and what we want to do is increase the public involvement in this time when we're putting the plan together. So that's why we're holding this meeting, and we'll be holding events in the future. So what the stormwater management plan is basically a document that contains all of our surface water management facilities in the cities. That includes lakes, wetlands, pipes, outfalls, and it establishes the goals and policies as far as the update and the management of these facilities. And we also have within that plan, there's defines the specific actions we're going to take to, one, protect stormwater and update the infrastructure. So with that, we have consultants helping us tonight. And from Young Environmental, we have Della Young at the door, right here, and we have Jessica Schaum and Tani Junks. And then the other consultant working with us is from Respect, Julie Blackburn, standing in the corner, and we also have Patrick Baldwin over here. So how this meeting is going to go is I'm going to give a short presentation about the plan, give you some background. We have a special guest speaker, Steve Woods, from the Freshwater Society. And then we're going to break out into breakout sessions. So we've got a table set up in each of the corners of the room so you can learn more, get engaged with, we have a survey, we have a welcome table, and we've got some maps of the city. So we encourage you to visit all the stations and just get some input and really interested in what you have to say with the stormwater management within the city. So along with me is Eric Francis. He's the water resource manager for the city. So Eric and I work together on the stormwater management issues within the city. So basically the plan is broken up into two parts. We talk about water quality and we talk about water quantity. Water quality is protecting the stormwater, preventing pollutants from getting into our stormwater and reaching the stormwater system or getting in our wetlands and lakes. Water quantity talks about flood protection. So our water quality goals are to reduce, like I said, reduce pollutants. Typically, this is total suspended solids. This is dirt, grit, and junk that washes away in our streets, ends up in our storm sewer system. The other aspect of that is nutrients, such as phosphorus, which are damaging to wetlands and lakes if they get into the stormwater system. So we try to trap those before they get into the stormwater system. Recently, we've also been trying to reduce the volume of stormwater that reaches our system. And the way we do that is try to create infiltration systems, keep it where it falls. So you think of a city, before it's a city, it's green grass, and you've got a watershed that is natural prairies, and rainwater falls and it absorbs into the ground. Now we put hard surfaces, it hits the hard surface, anything that's on the hard surface gets washed away into the storm sewer with the rainfall. So we have to manage that. So those are our goals as far as reducing the pollutants and reducing the volume. And so we have lofty goals that are 35 years out. So we have annual goals where we want to, with each project we do, reduce the amount. And we have long-term goals, 35 years, where we want to be 35 years from now and beyond. Water quantity. This is where we're protecting property against floods. So we have delineations of floodplains. We know which areas that are susceptible to flooding when we get a lot of rainfall, and we try to mitigate that and prevent that from happening and find other places to store water so it doesn't flood in those areas. So why is this important? Why are we having this meeting? This is, we have direct resources that we count on and rely on and we love that are impacted by stormwater quality. And those could be the Minnehaha Creek through the city, to Lake Calhoun, to Cedar Lake, Lake of the Isles, Mississippi River, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. This is a quality of life issue. So we maintain property values as long as the creek and the lakes are in good, healthy condition. And then as far as flood protection, it's property protection. It's, the value of your home is retained if it's not flooded. So what is the city doing? So we have redevelopment requirements. This is where a lot of our stormwater quality and quantity measures are being built. So any new development that goes in, they have to treat stormwater and they have to treat the stormwater volume. Mostly where this is occurring is underground chambers. So you don't see it, but it is there, usually under parking lots. They have built stormwater vaults. Some of you may be familiar with the Carpenter Park project that was going on this summer. We built this huge vault where we store stormwater and it goes through a filter and before it leaves the site and it's treated on site. When we do a street project, this is last year's pavement management where we put some porous pavers in near a park. So we're looking for opportunities where we can do water treatment and volume control within the street right-of-way. This also includes reducing the width of the streets when possible to reduce the amount of impervious surface. And lastly, we try to identify regional projects. Again, I'll reference in Carpenter Park where we're able to find one location that treated a large area, 30 acres of development before it goes onto the wetlands. So here are our challenges. The city of St. Louis Park is fully developed. So we don't have a lot of green space left in which to manage stormwater in these areas. City only controls about 30% of that area, and a lot of them are streets, right-of-way, and active parks that are in use. Also, we have increased frequency and volume in stormwater events. So that means our flooding events are occurring more frequently, and they're a lot more water than we had planned for. So we need to find new locations where to store the stormwater and manage it within the city. So, no problem, right? So that's why we're up again. So because we only have that, we need you. We need residents to be actively involved in treating stormwater, whether it's building a rain garden in their yards or just picking up trash or picking up leaves so they don't go into the storm sewer. So I wanted to transition that now to find out more of what you can do. Turn the mic over to, did you just turn your mic on?
Houston, Texas was in the news a bit a couple months ago. They got walloped. Hurricane Harvey. The misnomer there is that Hurricane Harvey was really Rainstorm Harvey. What wiped out that city was getting over 3 feet of rain in just a couple of days. That's a major league buzzkill for most city drainage systems to get that much water in that little bit of time. So when Phil says you're dealing with change, yeah, we're living in an era of some megastorms. And our understanding of what normal rains are has really changed when I was a little baby engineer back in the 1980s. And one of the things that's going on all across the metro right now are that cities are taking a look at their stormwater plans. Actually, they're doing more than that. As part of their comp planning processes, cities all over the metro are looking at all their infrastructure. Infrastructure is a horrible term that refers to all the very expensive, very long-lived systems that society depends upon. Roads, bridges, drinking water systems, wastewater sewer systems, stormwater systems, and a few other things. And we always take them for granted. They're just there, usually out of sight, out of mind, until an ice storm takes down half the power of the city for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. 35W bridge collapse happens. Oakdale, just a couple months ago. 694 blew out in Oakdale. Oh, wrong. MnDOT will be the first to tell you that the city's water main broke and then took out Interstate 694. All of a sudden it's on everybody's mind and in their eyes and on the news. The thing that doesn't happen, by and large, in the Twin Cities region, unlike most major metropolitan areas in the country, is when we get one of these megastorms, that night the TV news is not filled with a bunch of footage of flooded homes. Yeah, there's an occasional knucklehead that drives his SUV under an underpass and floods out his car, stalls it out. But for the most part, we don't have all that type of footage. The next morning, we don't have a bunch of sunrise morning TV shows showing footage of people hauling their lives out to the curb, soggy carpet, rotten sheetrock, high school yearbooks from the cardboard box in the basement. That doesn't largely happen in this region because there's been some far-reaching thinking as far as how do we design municipal systems? How do we have a layer of governance, regional governance of these watershed districts? Minnehaha Creek here, plus Bassett Creek for a northern portion of the city, I believe. Together, you've got multiple pieces of government working on how do we keep this safe, how do we make it work? Here's the deal. Phil's right. Your system was built quite a while ago, and it's in the ground. It's got a limited lifespan. Since the original purchase of your drainage systems for the city, your city has been making decisions. How often do we maintain it? How often do we upgrade it? When do we upgrade it? What's necessary? What needs to happen here? And part of what you can do tonight is your city is doing, frankly, a little bit more than a lot of cities with going, we want to hear from you. Mostly, they don't want to hear from you, well, should it be a 36-inch pipe or a 48-inch pipe that carries water? They're looking for values. We got all the computer models in the world that can tell you how much water is moving from A to B and how much pollutants it's carrying and that sort of stuff. But the community really shapes how the system gets designed. I've been thinking about this a lot because the city where I live is going through a very similar process to this. And I thought, well, I should give the city my input. And I've been doing this for my entire career, and it's like, I kind of stopped. It's like, what am I going to tell them? I live in the city of Shoreview. It's a pretty well-run city as cities go. They don't need me coming from the outside and going, hey, this is wrong, this is right. But I can tell them what I think. For example, I moved to Shoreview because it's 30% open space. Bunch of Ramsey County open space, there's lakes, ponds, wetlands. And so if the city's talking about how do we do new stormwater ponds in the city, they could have a nice pond with wetland edging around it and everything, and maybe it's good for wildlife, fine with me. They could put it in underground tanks and put it under City Hall parking lot, out of sight, out of mind. More expensive, plus there's some pretty big maintenance costs on the tail end of cleaning that out. They could put it in relatively smaller ponds that are really deep, pretty unsafe, so they put cyclone fencing around it to keep it safe. All three of those methods would get the job done, but there's a style component to it. It's probably not the word I meant to use, but there's different ways to accomplish these things and how they want it to function within the city. And so, yeah, you're helping the city make a bunch of choices because they're going to hear your values at these various workstations. And they are making these choices because of some of the changes Phil pointed out. I've got a couple changes I'll do here in the few minutes that I have, but one of the things that surprisingly affects the stormwater system is, what's the city's policy on using salt on the roads? Salt came into use on the roads after World War II. It hasn't been here forever, but you know what? It really, really works well. It gets the trick, does the trick, gets the job done. And it's only now, after we've been doing this for 40, 50 years, we're starting to see that, oh my gosh, once that salt gets in the water, it's there. It stays there, exactly. And we're starting to see it soaking into the groundwater, which is where an awful lot of people get their drinking water from. This isn't theoretical. They've got the data now showing that, oh my God, over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, the salt levels are going up. We're also seeing that it's affecting what, not to get technical, but the little critters in the creek, the bottom of the food chain. What are they doing? Well, in areas very near like a highway where there's a big pulse of salt flow coming in, for the most part, they're dying. That affects the fisheries and everything else. I like walleye. I don't really want to put a dent in that. And so my city is taking a look at what do we do? How do we want to approach this? And they just passed a new salt ordinance in their city that says, you know what, we're kind of going to ignore the middle of the residential blocks, but we are going to do the intersections. They've already been able to reduce their salt use 20%. I like it because it also lowers my taxes. Things like that come into play with this. It has to do with how often they have to clean out their ponds. It might collect some of the sand that they may still be applying. Flooding-wise, the storms we're getting here are bigger. When I was a little engineer back in the 1980s, everything I designed is now under-designed. Not that I did the job wrong back then, it's just different. Back when I was young, it wasn't that short in the 80s, but the things that I was designing back in the 80s, we assumed that the 1 in 100 chance of a storm hitting each year was 5.9 inches coming in 24 hours. We would design the pipes and the overflow systems to handle that. Nowadays, young engineers are using 7.1 inches. Now, it's dangerous to perform math in public, but that's a 20% increase within the span of my professional life about our understanding of how big these pipes and ponds should be. And so it's been in the last decade that the engineers have started using this 7.1 inch figure. Well, think about it. If you have systems that were built more than 10 years ago, you're a first-ring suburb. Almost everything here was built more than 10 years ago. You could be as much as 20% under-designed. What that means is that the level of protection that some people that might be living next to a pond or creek, they think, well, yeah, I put my house 2 feet above the 100-year flood. Actually, that might only be 1.5 feet now above, because the 100-year flood has come up a bit, not that your house is sunk. So now you're left with a choice. Let me use better words. The city council and the staff that they work with are left with choices. What do we do about that? Do we ignore it? That's the cheap, low-cost solution, at least in the short term. Do we run our models again, come up with different numbers, and tell people who might be in a sensitive area, hey, look, you don't quite have what you thought, now you have this. Do they get more strict and they go, hey, you're in this area, and you really ought to consider getting flood insurance? Do they take it another step and start getting a little more intrusive in your life and say, hey, we're going to require that you get flood insurance in this area? Or do they start saying, we're going to upgrade our system? We're going to do it smart. We'll do it concurrent if we're doing street restoration work. You're not going to rip up the street, put new storm sewer, and a year after you just reconstructed the street.
No,
right?
We're not doing that.
For the record, Phil says no. Point is, you've got your council and staff have a whole range of options there. One last value that they're going to play with is how much do we expect our citizens to do? How much happens because we think it's a no-brainer? We think everybody should turn their gutters into their grass as opposed to out onto their driveway and down into the street. If we can get every citizen to do that, you can do it by regulation. You can do it by every single newsletter from here until when you retire says, please do this. You can do it by saying, all right, let's get an Eagle Scout who really wants to do this and have them go door to door. Low-cost, small government solution. You can have Master Water Stewards. Master Water Stewards is a program that Freshwater does where we help train super citizens. There are 6 from St. Louis Park already, another 4 in the program right now, and they're working with the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District to get trained to figure out, hey, we're willing to work with our neighborhood to do things like turn that gutter in, to create a rain garden, or just plain help with a site audit to figure out how can we handle stormwater a little better here and take some of the pressure off the main systems. It's pretty cool. That's a big time commitment for individuals. If you're looking at what else can I do besides say my values tonight, but I don't want to go so far as to go through a 13-class training regimen and then have to meet with my neighbors. It's the things about you sweep up your fertilizer if you put it on there. You minimize your fertilizer use. You know what? Don't water your grass during a rainstorm. If this wasn't being recorded, I would tell you a story of one of my neighbors, but it is, so I won't. Suffice it to say, most of us don't look up to the person irrigating during the thunderstorm. There are little things like that that make a difference. And if each property, be it a residential or a business property, was able to say, let's soak in as much as we can here, let's keep that raindrop as close to where it falls, oh my gosh, the amount of headaches, the amount of tax dollars that sometimes have to be applied to fixing otherwise fixable problems on a widely scattered scale end up having to be fixed on a highly concentrated, centralized basis. And those are different price points. So you're left with some of these choices as far as, well, we've got water coming into our city. We sure as heck don't want the upstream city to say, we're going to fix our flooding problems and just shunt it downstream to St. Louis Park. That's being a really, let me pick a good adjective, not a very nice neighbor. Same way when you fix your flooding problems, downstream neighbors or the chain of lakes don't really want you to just say, all right, let's get bigger pipes and just shunt it downstream and we're done. It's all over, no problem. That by and large isn't going to happen. But the choices that your council will make have to deal with, should we do A or B? And it's really easy to go, A, you know, that's better, it's better outcome. Ooh, but wonder if B is cheaper. Some people would go, B. Well, wonder if A is better, but a little bit more expensive. Okay. Wonder if A is better, but a lot more expensive. Not so much. These aren't simple dichotomies of which one, this one or that one. They all come with different price points. They all come with how much you want to pay up front versus how much you want to pay over the lifespan of that infrastructure. Putting an underground tank in there and having to have the city come out with a vac truck and suck it out once a year, every year thereafter, has a price tag. These folks want to hear what your perspectives are and how do you balance that? Because there are a world of ways that you can handle water and keep it as well functioning as it has been to date, even as these bigger rains are hitting us now. There's a whole range of options for taking care of that and still having a great system without breaking the bank. That's what I've got for my initial remarks. I'm going to hang around here for a while for questions and whatever else comes up.
All right.
Great.
Well, thank you, Steve. Anything, Steve?